I was taken out of body. I actually felt myself moving through all these different dimensions. There's nothing there except for love. And I start looking around me and I start seeing billions and billions of stars. Then all of a sudden I realize these aren't stars, they're souls. We're all in this womb of God. And then all of a sudden I heard, this is what it means to be created in the image of God. You are it. And my entire life starts flashing in my mind. I suddenly feel like everything about my life is wrong.
Still have questions? Well, join me live for Wake Up Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll answer your questions, and you might see a familiar face. Together, we're waking up the collective. Thank you for watching. My guest today is Angie Harris, who had a spiritually transformative awakening in 2016 that changed everything about her life because her entire life's plan flashed before her eyes. So, Angie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, not only did you have this experience, but you were also a channeler and a psychic medium. But I think it's probably fair to start in the place where everything in your life changed, which was in 2016. So I would love for you to just tell us in any way that makes sense about that experience.
So, to make sense of that moment in time, I'm going to kind of back up for about 3 years prior.
Okay.
I did not grow up in a Christian home or religious, but I became religious at 16 and very devoted. Always had weird spiritual experiences my whole life. I saw spirits, heard them, didn't know what to do with it, had UFO contact, didn't know what to do with it. Found myself in a church and was taught that my gifts were evil. So I even went to a Bible college. Like I was devout, like I'm going to serve God because I knew that I had a calling to serve God. So about 2014, in the church setting, I suddenly had this urge to study end times. It just came out of nowhere. And I was teaching a senior high Sunday school at my church. And so I was like devouring the Bible, like reading anything I could about end times, like the prophecies. I had like 5 or 6 Bibles out in front of me. I'd read each one of them and compare them and look at notes, and then I'd go teach it to my Sunday school kids. And as I'm doing this, I have no idea that I'm actually manifesting my own awakening. And in the middle of this, I'm having this deep desire to sit in the presence of God. Didn't know about meditation, but I would sit for hours and just in stillness and feel this presence come over me. And I really wanted to please God, to be good enough, all that, for the religious faith trying to tells you that you have to do to be right. And as I was seeking and seeking and seeking, one day in the summer of 2020, in 2016, I'm in my backyard mowing. And as I'm mowing, I'm running through my head all the normal things. How do I be a good Christian? How do I serve God? All this stuff, kind of criticizing myself in many ways. And I remember exactly where I was standing. I was push mowing towards my house, and I heard this audible voice come through and say, "You're doing it wrong." And I remember thinking, what was that? Like it was so real. It felt like somebody was standing beside me. And so I remember I stopped the mower and looked around. Is there somebody in my yard talking to me? Like, am I mowing wrong? Why did they say I'm doing this wrong? And then I hear it again. You're doing it wrong. And then I start having this strange feeling in my body and in my mind, and my entire life starts flashing before my, like in my mind. I suddenly feel like everything about my life is wrong. I'm not at the right place. I'm shrunk myself so much. I'm not working at the right place. I'm not supposed to be going to this church. I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing. Everything just felt like this sudden urge to change everything. And it was kind of scary. And then I started hearing these things coming through my mind about, of course, because I was so religious, I think that my spirit team was like using religious context to get to me. But they were like, stop walking in condemnation. This isn't why you came to earth. You came here to accomplish this mission and you're not doing it. And I knew in that moment I had to change everything, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't understand that my entire life was about to be flipped upside down. And so that was like, I remember having moments prior to that, but that was the moment I know for sure everything changed for me, because it was almost like there was no way I could deny it at that point, that I was trying too hard to fit into this mold that humanity had tried to tell me to be, instead of following my soul and the path that I came to actually accomplish why I was here. And that just started to unfold all kinds of things for me. It brought, I mean, I started a really deep, intense healing process. I started to explore my gifts. I started having all these memories come back that I had forgotten about. I started having like these like experiences where I knew things that I didn't even know that were possible to know about God, about the universe, about energy. um it just expanded me, and it was almost too much at times. And so I spent a lot of time by myself. And around that same time, right after I had this sudden awakening, is when I started to very clearly hear from the spirit realm. And they were kind of like pushing me to do things. And one of the things they kept pushing me to do was to reach out to my dad, who I was in contact with, but not really close to. I'd see him at like my birthday or holidays. And they were like, reach out to your dad, reach out to your dad, reach out to your dad. And I'm like, I don't want to. Well, it wouldn't leave. So I reached out and started to reconcile with him. Within 6 months, he was diagnosed with cancer. And then I was with him for that last 3 years of his life, and he died in 2020. And I was beside him when he died. And when he died, that's when even more opened up. And so I started having experience with my dad. I started meeting all these spiritual beings around me. I started recognizing that the voices I'd heard my whole life and the shadows I was seeing and the spirits were actually spirits trying to communicate with me, that the church had kind of taught me to believe were demonic. Um, and so I really started working on trusting myself and my gifts. And that's when I had even more experiences where that ended up leading me to the channeling that I do now. So,
Oh my goodness. Okay, I've got so many questions here. You know what I want to start with first? You said that you got more and more religious and you found this church, but you knew that you had some of these abilities. And I talk to people all the time who have abilities as children. They see spirits. You said that you were seeing UFOs. I'm curious, what did you actually share with the people who were at the church that they said, no, wrong, bad, evil, cannot do this anymore? Can you specifically share with us what was going on?
well, I can share some of it. There's a lot, but like I had, I had always had these spirits around me and following me from a small child. And I grew up in a pretty abusive home. And so nobody would believe me when I shared those when I was younger. So around age 16, I had a friend invite me to church, and I'm thinking, well, this is where all my answers are going to be. Like they understand this world that I don't understand what is happening to me. So when I started going to church and I started sharing more about how I was feeling, what I was hearing, sensing, they really started to be like, you got to be careful with that. There are demons out there, there's dark energy, mediumship is evil. don't summon something that could attack you. And you know I really just shared, like, I would get visions about people, I would have dreams that would come true. I would a lot of times, I mean, this happened a lot. There were shadow figures that would just appear around me, or they would follow me. And I kept a journal of all this at the time. And as I was going through high school, my family didn't understand, why are you going to church? They didn't go to church. And so they kind of made fun of me. And nobody really ever got me. My family didn't get me, the church didn't get me. I couldn't ever find my place in this world. And I just kept trying to fit in and try to fit in. So I just started to believe what they told me, that everything I was experiencing was evil. So I started to try everything I could to get rid of this. I would go to, like, I was in this like Pentecostal church for a long time, and they would do like deliverance sessions on me and take me in the back of the church and lay their hands on me and cast out demons and try to fix me and save me. And I would go like to the front of the church like every Sunday, like, please take this from me, God. Like, what's wrong with me? Why am I such a bad sinner? Why do I have all this happen to me? And it was a lot of trauma, to be honest. It on top of my own human trauma, like them telling me that this is my fault, that I've done something wrong to cause all these things, really caused me to hate myself in a lot of ways. And that's kind of what was going through my head that day. I had that awakening, as like I was criticizing myself, like, how do I get rid of this? Like, I wake up in the middle of the night and there's this spirit standing behind my bed, or like by my bed, and what did I do to cause this? And they just kept telling me it was because I wasn't accepting the Lord, or I wasn't being good enough. I wasn't reading my Bible enough. I wasn't praying enough. But I did all the time. And so I would write this down in my journal, like, what else do I need to do? I would write down my experiences. I tried to like bargain with God. Even as a teenager, I forgot about this until just now. As a teenager, I believe I was 17 or 18. One night, I even prayed to Satan and said, if you're real, Satan, like, the church keeps telling me that you're real, then you come and get me, since God's not saving me from this. And of course, I did try to take my life that night, and I woke up the next day upset, like, okay, fine, I'm here. So let's figure this out. Um, and I just dove even stronger into my Christian faith and tried really hard to do everything I could, like, went overseas, like, a ton of times, was overseas a long time for several of my trips, kept journals of all those. And even in the middle of that, like, my mom ended up finding one of my journals when I was on a mission trip one time, and called all my friends in the church and told them, Angie's lost it. She has all these stories in her journal about shadow figures following her, demons talking to her, these experiences of like physical things moving in front of her. And I was devastated. I mean, it was very hard to like heal from that, even when I had my awakening and I started to realize that this was never an evil gift. It was never demonic. It was a gift that I came to share. Um, it took me a lot of courage to come out and to share this, because of the criticism that I received, even from the church. Like, when I left the church, I still was getting messages. I mean, even in the last years, I will receive like a message on Messenger or Facebook, like, what you're doing is evil. And so, a lot,
You mean from the church that you belong to, they're reaching out and telling you what you're doing now is evil.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm also curious. You mentioned revelations and end times, and you
Mhm.
said that you really were trying to search around that. You had six Bibles open, and you're comparing stories. What about revelations and end times was drawing you in so much? And the reason I'm asking you is because I too, when I was part of the Baptist church, I got really sucked into that. Like there were end times books and I was reading those. And it just became like almost a little bit of an obsession for me as well. So, what was it
Yeah.
for you that drew you into that?
Looking back at it now, I understand that it was actually an attempt to prepare me for new, like, ascension, to show me that in the middle of all this screwed up text that man has written through and changed, there's truths in it. There's things that we need to understand that we're going to go through as a human race to move into a new earth frequency. And I was here to teach that. And so I actually am grateful for the times that I studied the biblical text in a religious concept, because when somebody now comes to me with that mindset, I'm able to teach them because I know it. I studied it. I was in it. I there's like nobody can ever tell me that I didn't accept Jesus and try as hard as I could, even though they, were like, well, you didn't do it right. I can preach the Bible to anybody, but I can tell them the truth of what is in there and what was messed up.
Okay, this is a really great place to do this. And I think that this helps a lot of people. I believe religion has a lot of really good aspects to it. The communion, the sharing, love of God, of Jesus, all of those things are so wonderful, the community. But I think that there are some parts that are very dangerous and destructive and hold people back. And so I'd love to know your take on that part of it since you've studied a lot.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me to leave church because it has like it really feels like another lifetime to me. Like even though it really wasn't that long ago, it feels like it was like a whole nother identity of who I was. But I've come to the understanding that the concept and teachings that the person we called Jesus, were accurate. He was actually an ascended master, a teacher of he calls himself the teacher of the ascension. He came to teach about consciousness and inner power and manifestation and meditation and healing yourself and helping humanity to remember who they are. In many ways, I do believe that he was a volunteer, like many of us here on Earth are volunteers now. He just had a greater scale of people seeing him at that time because of his message being so unique compared to those he was around. Not that we are not experiencing that, but we have more of a global scale of an awakening where people are starting to question themselves. And so I think that the teachings that were attempted to be passed down to us, that the religious leaders then grabbed a hold of and thought, oh, well, this man came to teach this. We need to use this as our own power to keep people from knowing their truth. Because as soon as somebody knows their truth, we lose power over them. So they started to rewrite, or they would left some in there, but then would put rules or stipulations or obligations or like you have to do the sacraments, you have to do whatever religion that you ended up in has some kind of a rule you have to follow. And if you don't follow the rule, you're not obeying God. And God is a just God, and He's going to damn you to hell if you don't do it right. So, what greater way to control humanity than to tell them that you have to follow this and put a little bit of truth in it, because we know deep inside what is truth and what is not. And so if we can resonate with something as truth, but yet have a little bit of like lie put in there, we're confused because we're like, well, this feels right. This feels like good for my heart and my soul. I believe that this could be true. There's love in it, but on the opposite of it is control, manipulation, and fear. And so, even with like the studying of the end times, learning that he was actually teaching about this time as well, preparing humanity along with many of the prophets and mediums that lived at his time and after. Like, we think, I always find it interesting that the church would say that mediums or psychics are evil, because I'm like, where do you think we got the biblical text? What do you think a channel is now? That's Jesus was a channel. There's prophets that were channels. How do you think we got the biblical text in the first place? We have channels writing things now. If there hadn't been a rule that you can't add to that, we'd still be writing the Bible. And
Mhm.
so it was just all it wa it was an opportunity for the ego mind of humanity to grasp onto, to take the message, and to use for their own gain. And it was a beautifully created concept that worked for a very long time until recently. And I think it's what's been really interesting is since I've left the church, my family has started going, and I've noticed people around me that hadn't been involved also starting to go. And I really started to question this for a little bit because I'm like, why are they going to the church when other people are leaving and awakening? And then my spirit team said, well, this is part of the ascension. Like, it's a graduation, or it's like a gradual shift into the awakening. So we can get them truth, even though it's messed up in the middle of the lies. There's still truth being taught. There's still a resident of the frequency of themselves coming towards them that will eventually, just like when I was studying the Bible, eventually wakes them up. So there's this evolution of moving through religion, out of religion, and then into your true awakening.
You mentioned that Jesus is an ascended master. And for a lot of people, they don't really understand what that means. Can you explain that part?
That's a human label that we put on a teacher that has a ability to teach concepts from a higher frequency or dimension to a human comprehension. So there's lots of ascended masters that have been a part of the earth, but Jesus in particular was able to use his voice by basically channeling information from his higher self, and that teaching was not skewed when it moved through his vessel. So that's a master teacher where he's able to access information beyond the human logic and channel it through the human ego for humanity to receive. So that's what it would be like, master. Like, he's
That's such a beautiful explanation. I love everything you said about that. Like, so well put. All right, I'm going to ask you one more thing, and then I really want to get into what your spirit team has shared with you. But you said when you were mowing the lawn that you were condemning yourself, criticizing yourself. Can you give examples? Because I think this will help people who might be in that place. What were some of the things that you were criticizing yourself about that you now know you should not have been?
oh man. Um Negative thoughts, thinking normal human thoughts, desires, lust, thinking that I needed or I wanted more, thinking that I shouldn't want more money. I shouldn't want more for myself. I should accept where I am, like humbling myself, being upset with myself for wanting more, not being in the church setting, because I was really ridiculed and seen as not as good. I compared myself to other people and thought, well, I need to be as good of a Christian as they are. Maybe if I read the Bible more, maybe if I pray more, maybe if I go to more services, maybe if I prove to them that I know at least something to make me worthy, then they'll accept me and bring me into this. And so I really just it's just I wouldn't even listen to non-Christian music. I was terrified. That was actually the first thing that I decided to stop doing, which was crazy to me now because I look back and like, wow, I was so brainwashed. But I remember getting in my car the very next day and wanting to go somewhere. And before I had, like, when I went in religion, I loved like 70s music and rock music. I loved all that. But gradually, as I was in a church, I stopped listening to stuff because I'm like, oh, that's demonic. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to Fleetwood Mac. That's demonic, you know? And so I remember turning the channel in my car to a different station, and I was like cringing, like, oh my God, I'm inviting demons into my life. And so I had to really fight that feeling. But eventually I was like, wait, not, I'm good. Like, this is not causing me anything. And so it was really interesting to, all those things I didn't even know I was thinking. I'm sure there's so many more that were going through my mind, but it was just everything about my life. I was in fear all the time.
Well, I applaud you for your vulnerability and sharing that because I know sometimes it's not easy to expose ourselves, but I think this is going to help a lot of people. So
Yeah.
now to the good part, which is your spirit team says to you, you are doing it wrong. How did they communicate what you were doing incorrectly, or what did they show you that you needed to be doing instead?
So I interestingly had, because I was having visions and dreams and experiences already, I had been seeing myself speaking and teaching and engaging crowds and doing seminars, all this stuff. And of course, I think it's going to be in the church setting. So that's why I was like, I got to try harder to get where I'm supposed to go. Um, and so when they came through that day, they basically showed me, you're not doing any of this in the church. And I'm like, well, where am I going to do it? That, like, where else do you do this? I don't, and I can't go dabble in the demonic stuff and, all the stuff that the church tells you to stay away from. But it was just like this gradual pool. Like, I remember the first, I think this is a lot of awakened people start this way, but the first thing I suddenly wanted to do was meditate. And I started meditating. Then I really wanted to start healing my trauma. So I looked for a therapist, I looked for people to start helping me. Then I started like dabbling in learning about the afterlife and comparing it to what I'd been taught in the church. And especially having my dad in the process of dying from cancer and being with him in that, my life was chaos. I worked in the mental health field for like 20 years. I was working in a inpatient facility at the time. So I was beyond stressed. My whole life was about serving other people, had no boundaries. And spirit just started to push me out of things. Like, I was fired from my job 5 days after or before my dad died. I had like COVID shut the world down. I didn't have a job for 3 months. I didn't have any friends for like 2 years. Like, everything just crashed for me. And as it was, this is unfolding of the visions they showed me before I left the church of, this is what we meant. You're a teacher. You're here to help the ascension. You're here to channel this message to those who are ready to receive it so they can understand themselves in a new way.
Okay. Wow. Well, you also said that your life passed and flashed before your eyes. It almost seems like you might have had a small life review or a similar life review. And I know you didn't call this a near death experience. You called it like a near death like experience. So we could call it an STE, a spiritually transformative experience, an OBE, out of body experience. But how did you perceive that life review that showed you, oh my gosh, I'm off of my path?
Well, at the time, my interpretation was through that religious lens of like, oh, I was screwed up. But there was this inner knowing inside of me of, I didn't. This is just showing me what I have been off track doing. That I have, like, basically most of my life been a people pleaser and tried to live my life being perfect for everybody else around me. And I just realized I was hurting myself. I wasn't honoring other people. I was seeing like it's hard to explain because it's so fast. It was just like one thing after another so fast that I could like see from a child all the way up to where I was at the time in my 30s. And it was just like an overwhelmed feeling of like, oh, like it's just like this deep breath that I took where all that repressed energy started to expand out of me. And I just realized that none of this is real. I have been pretending and to be good enough for the 36 years of my life, and I don't ever have to pretend again. Like, I just have to live in my truth and find it out, figure out who I am as an authentic person and allow that inner spirit that everybody has to guide us forward. But that those things didn't really start to fully unfold for me until after my dad passed. And I was in meditation one day and he came through to me very clearly and he said to me, and nothing that they taught you was real. And he said to me, he's like, I'm doing my life review and I'm seeing everything that I experienced. I'm seeing everything you experienced. I'm seeing everything I caused you. And I feel everything I caused you. And it just like, it hit me. And he said to me, I need you to forgive me. And I was like, "Well, I forgave you before you left, Dad. It's no big deal. Like, we're good." He's like, "No." He's like, "There's a difference between you saying you forgive me and you changing the energy of what I caused you." Because if you hold on to this, if you allow this to control you, if you don't actually heal this vibration stays within you. And this actually causes my vibration to stay tethered to you. And when you release it, my vibration rises, and therefore your vibration can rise. And then you help me on the other side so that I can release this cycle of karma and you can be healed on earth because he's like, I can't heal this. You have to heal this now that I'm not there. But he had no idea the way that he had made me feel here on earth. And so when he was going through his review, he came and explained it to me, which helped me understand what I had been going through.
This is such a gift, Angie, that you're giving everybody right now. So, forgiveness is a topic that has been covered on this channel a lot. And I've said for a long time, I feel like forgiveness is not about somebody else, it's about you. Forgiveness is about releasing for you. But I also love what you said is that I don't often think that we probably imagine that by holding on to something, we hold somebody else back in a very literal sense. So I'd like for you to elaborate that on that in any way you can, because I think that this will help a lot of people to understand that they may not have done the forgiving even right.
Yeah, this is a concept that I really like to teach because a lot of people I understand wanting to hold on to non-forgiveness. I truly there we as humans, many of us have been victims to things that really in our understanding shouldn't be forgivable. But we tether ourselves to that trauma when we don't forgive it. It's not about forgiving the person, it's about letting go of the energy that the trauma caused you. Because the spirit, my team has shown me before, even in my trauma growing up, like I'd had some sexual abuse in my history. It wasn't necessary. It was the sexual abuse that caused the trauma, but the actual trauma I held on to was the emotions and feelings that it caused me afterwards, which then led me to holding shame in my energy. The shame is what lowers my vibration, not the actual trauma. It's the belief that I brought in about myself because of the event. So the more I hold on to that victim mentality, which I was a victim, but I am not a victim now. So my choice is I'm no longer going to be the victim of you any longer. I release you from my energy to go on your own path. I take my power back and I step into my own truth, where that allows you to release the karmic energy, the trauma energy, raise your vibration, which opens you back up to a healing frequency. And we have no idea that when we do that, we're also releasing the frequency from our lineage, because a lot of these traumas have been passed down through the family. And so when I decided to heal from this trauma my dad caused me, he was able, like, he even told me, he's like, I'm going to be in training to be a guide once you help me to raise my vibration, because he had hung on to what he caused me as he went through the review. And I gave him the gift of saying, I no longer am holding this against you. I'm freeing myself from this, and I'm freeing you from this. And that's hard when somebody has done something horrible to you. I understand. So it's not even necessarily about you freeing them, because they'll have their own process they'll work through. And we may think that people can get away with things, but even in the spirit realm, once you pass, you still review yourself, and you're still going to feel. So if you imagine feeling what you caused somebody to feel, that in itself is a presence of hell, I would say. So you have to allow yourself to work that energy out in order to raise your vibration, even on the other side. Free will doesn't end when we leave our body. Free will is a eternal thing that we have a choice to move into a different frequency, have different experiences, or have to come, not necessarily have to come back to earth, but choose to come back to earth to continue to work out karma.
Yeah.
And so when we forgive, when we heal, we release that. We don't have to come repeat that again. So why not do it now?
Oh my gosh, I agree. I want to add two more things here to this to just go even a little bit deeper. Not only does the shame and that repetitiveness of being in this space of taking on that trauma and becoming the victim hurt you emotionally, but my friend Kristen, who's been on the show a couple of times, is a facial release specialist.
Mm.
And as she was learning to do this, she also became a Reiki healer, and she's also mediumistic. What she discovered is that she would be working on somebody and they'd come in and they'd say, my left hip hurts. And as she was working on that area and doing all the release exercises, she would feel the trauma in the body, and the body would actually talk to her. And another thing that we do with that trauma, in addition to taking it on emotionally, is we take it in physically. And it will sometimes manifest as an injury that won't heal, as a point of pain within the body, and it keeps you stuck because you were holding on to it energetically and it's manifested in the body. So that's one. And then the other part that I wanted to mention, and I'd love for you to give people some more ideas of how they can help overcome this, is that as we are a victim and we go through our lives and we hold on to those thoughts, we repeat them over and over and over again. And our body becomes addicted to those thoughts. We go to them for maybe 10 years, multiple decades, and they just become such a part of us that the body actually releases serotonin, it releases joyful feelings because we've become addicted to thoughts. And releasing those thoughts is never as easy as just saying, okay, I'm not going to have those thoughts anymore, because your body is actually releasing chemical mediators that encourage you to hold on, like dopamine, that gives you that feel good feeling, even though it's something bad. And I'm wondering if you went through that, because maybe it was easier for you because you had this spiritual experience, but I'm sure you've worked with people who have found it very difficult to let go of those thoughts and feelings. And what would you say, what advice would you give to them around that?
Yeah, that's also true. Everything is energy, and energy comes from emotions and thoughts. Like, there's not anything in the universe that's not a thought. And so when we have these emotions stuck in our body and they're manifesting in whatever way, they manifest into our patterns, they manifest into our beliefs, they manifest into our experiences with other humans, into relationships, they manifest in how we treat our body and how we eat, they manifest in how, you walk. I mean, what's amazing is every little tiny part of your life is built on a pattern that you brought in through your human experience. So when you don't recognize a pattern, the pattern becomes the addiction that you think you're going to get your problem solved with. And so I mean, that I believe that's what Einstein said, is like you keep repeating the same thing wishing that you had a different result. Like that's the insanity is what
Yeah,
is
definition of
definition
insanity.
of insanity.
Yes.
So it's like, but we're ignorant to it. We don't even know that we are repeating a pattern trying to solve a problem, because when we were 6, that's the pattern we developed and that kept us safe. Well, that kept us safe then, so I'm gonna keep doing it now, and I don't even realize I'm still behaving like a 6-year-old when this one thing comes up in my life. And so, how do you heal that? You recognize, "Oh, I'm acting like a 6-year-old. I'm acting the same way I acted when that trauma happened, and so how do I reprogram that?" Well, I allow myself to acknowledge it. I see my pattern. I feel the emotions that are attached to that event. I let the emotions work through my body. A lot of people don't want to feel. And I hear this from my clients all the time. When am I going to stop crying? Once they start opening the floodgate, when do I stop feeling these? When they're done. And the thing about being a human, our emotions are our gift to teach us how to be in alignment with our higher self. When you have an emotion that takes you in a place where you feel uncomfortable or you don't feel good, that is your clue that you're out of alignment with your truth. So, if you have a pain somewhere, if you have this pattern, all of that is the navigation system that the universe gave us to figure out where to take our next step. So if I'm walking and I keep having hip pain, what is it that my hip is trying to tell me? Is this something going on currently in my life, or is this something that has manifested in my life because I've held on to something that happened when I was 6? And it could be both. You could have something happening in your life that is creating a memory in your body that is bringing up an emotion, because emotions just don't leave. I see them as like, if you could imagine putting sticky notes all over inside your body, like events or feelings that took place throughout the entire lifetime, and you bump against that, like you walk into your bedroom and you hit your toe on your bed or something, that's what's happening all the time. We're bumping against things that are hitting these little wounds that we have in our body that then manifest into something either emotional, physical, or within the physical realm of our life too. And so you can't run away from emotions. You can't. When I worked in the mental health field, I remember the thing that we taught people were coping skills. We would teach them, oh, you're having a bad feeling, go for a walk. Oh, you're having this feeling, go do something else, distract yourself from that. And as I went through my own healing, I'm like, that is such a lie. No wonder people stay repeating in the therapy process or stay repeated in the physical pain process, because you can't heal something that you're avoiding. What you resist persists. So you must allow yourself to go deeper. And my spirit team has said, if you can't figure out what it was that caused you to feel like this, then just feel it. And as you feel it, maybe it will come to you, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to figure out what happened to you when you were 3 years old to heal something. You need to know, I feel this way, and I'm going to acknowledge I have shame around this. I feel shame when I'm around this person. Why do I feel that? Is it something that's out of alignment with the person, or is there something coming up in me that's triggering me that I need to pay attention to? So instead of blaming the outside world and saying, they caused me to feel this way, you come back to self realization of, I feel this way, not because of them, but they're mirroring something to me, and I'm going to feel it and I'm going to deal with it and see where it came from or why I hold on to this.
That is so helpful and so beautiful, also. I love it that you said that you can't run away from your emotions. You're right. I was thinking about that as you said it. You're going to have an emotion. So the choice becomes, do I decide to have an emotion that's going to serve me and help me? Or am I going to choose to have an emotion that is not going to serve me and is not going to help me? Because either way, you're going to have one. So which one do you want to have? That's really the choice. And I also love how you've talked about shame throughout this, because I think a lot of people, when they think about emotional vibrations of where an emotion falls on that scale of high, low vibration, people often think hate is the lowest vibration. I actually think it's shame, because there is a piece of this that also comes back to self love. And I think that based on what you've described, you were not in a place of self love. And you're shaking your head and agreeing with me because you might be on single screen. So I would love for you to tell everybody what you did to get rid of the shame and to raise the vibration of where you were actually loving yourself.
Mhm. Well, that is a process that I think every human continues to work through, because we all have an ego that likes to, I believe that in some ways, when you have a wound, that wound is going to be something that you can continue to work through. Like there's a verse in the Bible that says, the thorn in my flesh, like the thing that I can't get out. And so sometimes there's a wound that you continually have to repeat and come back to. And it doesn't mean it doesn't get better. It just means that you recognize it when it pops back up. So you can't criticize yourself if all of a sudden you start feeling some way that you thought you healed from. I hear that all the time. Oh my God, I'm going backwards. No, that's just another layer of the same thing. And each layer releases you more and more so that it becomes less in control. And so, really, for me, it was allowing myself to feel it, to you mentioned that shame is lower than hate. That is true because it takes energy to hate. Shame is a feeling where you just don't care. There's no emotion. There's a continued criticism where there's no desire to even try. Like hating something even takes effort. And so you would say that, "Oh, I hate myself," but really the hate would be a little bit of a higher vibration than the shame, because that would at least give you the motivation to be like, "Oh, I'm tired of hating myself. So therefore I'm going to work on, why do I hate myself, so that I can move up into, I'm angry. I'm really ticked off about all these things that happened in my life, and I'm going to start to feel that. I'm going to let myself be angry at my dad or at my stepdad or at my mom, whoever that was that needs that anger." And that's one of the things my dad, he's reminded me, he gave me permission. He said, "Angie, you don't have to pretend to not be hurt. You need to feel it. Get mad. Be mad at me. Because if you let yourself be mad, then you're not in the shame. You're not using that event to make yourself lower and to stay in a vibration where you can't feel. You have to get into a vibration of feeling. And once you move into feeling, you move through the layers of feeling. And eventually, as you open it up, you start to feel contentment. And then you move into love. But it's an evolution of emotions. You're not going to jump from shame to love. There's no way. They're two different frequencies. And the more you try to do that, the more shameful you're going to feel because I can't do it. So don't set yourself up for failure. What's the next emotion I can feel? Well, I'm really mad. Or if I can't get to anger, I'm sad. I'm really sad. I'm going to let myself sit here and cry. And then as I cry, I'm going to realize, oh my gosh, there might be a little bit of anger inside of me. So I'm going to start to feel the anger. And then I might go back to sadness. And I might spend time in those two energies for a few weeks or a couple months. And then after that releases, I get to move into the next thing of grief or into, you know, feeling like I want revenge to something. Like I'm going to go and change my life now. So when we recognize where we are, we can change that. But we have to come to recognize that first and admit it that this is where I am. And I was in a deep shame when especially when I was in religion, because I just thought I was, horrible. It wasn't even that I hated myself. I just didn't have worth. And there's nothing and no one on earth that doesn't not have worth. Like there's nobody that the worth that I have now will never be greater or less. There's no way to earn more worth. We are always as worthy as we can be because we are that divine. We are that perfect in the eyes of our creator that once we realize who we don't have to perform or be anything other than ourselves, and we can live in freedom. That's the whole point, is to live in freedom.
Wow. I love that. So you came back from this experience with the spirit team and you said you changed everything about your life. How are you different in your life now? You changed careers and you did all kinds of things.
Hmm. Yes, it was a gradual shift, but I I started to offer my services like intuitive healing sessions. I was working full time and doing it on the side for quite a while. And as I was evolving, I was starting to have all these very intense spiritual experiences. I was leaving my body. I was having out of body experiences with my dad. He was speaking to me. I was visiting with these beings, with archangels. I went to go see where souls are created. I saw all these things that just started to blow my mind. And because I was continuing to have these strange experiences, I started really diving more into like near death experiences. So I didn't feel so crazy. Like, okay, I'm not dying, but I'm having the exact same experience of people that do die. So how is this happening? And as I was moving through all this, about 4 years ago, in the middle of the night, an actual spirit showed up in my room. She was this woman. She was beautiful. She walked by my bed, and it's not, odd for me to have a spirit show up, but this was a different experience I've ever had. She walked through my bed. She went to the door of my room and turned around and looked at me, and she just says, Annabelle, and vanished. And I was like, what was that? Who's Annabelle? And the next day, I wake up and I suddenly started having this urge to communicate with the spirit Annabelle. And she started to teach me how to channel. And so I started working with Annabelle and channeling on my own by myself. And then I started to offer it to other people just to practice, just to see, okay, what is going to come through me. And I did that for about a year. Then in meditation one day, I was working with Annabelle. All of a sudden, the energy shifted, and I was like, there's something new here. Like, what is happening? And I heard just this very gentle thing that said, we are the whispers in the wind, we are the wisdom keepers. And then this team of wisdom keepers came in, and I started working with them. And they really didn't introduce themselves to me, they just told me we're the wisdom keepers. And over the last several years, it's evolved for me to work with them. They've explained who they are, they've explained who I am. I've gotten stories that, like puzzle pieces of my life that got put together. Like after my dad died, or actually before my dad died, I had began to hear stories about them being visited by a UFO when my mom was pregnant with me. Um, and then I started having memories of like contact with galactic beings. Then I started remembering my contact with UFOs. then would ask my mom about these stories, found out she had other experiences. So I realized throughout my whole life I'd had contact with this team and just didn't realize it. And a lot of the things I was telling the church, they thought that was demonic because I was explaining it as like these beings are coming to me. And so over time, I've adjusted, like they've helped me get my energy to a place where I can handle their frequency, because it's pretty intense. But over, like I would say within the last year or so, I do one-on-one sessions and healing sessions and mediumship sessions, but I know my main gift is to do the channeling. And so I mostly have been just working with them and offering guidance that they can give humanity for the ascension.
Wow. Okay. I want to come back to the wisdom keepers and the channeling of Annabelle, but I need to go back to a couple of things you said before that. You said that you went to the place where you saw and you know how souls are being created. What can you tell us about that?
Oh man, it's hard to explain because it's so magical, but I was taken out of body and pulled into, like, I actually felt myself moving through all these different dimensions, and I found myself and I knew I was very far from the third dimension. I don't know how to describe that, but I knew I wasn't there anymore. And I found myself in this um it's hard to put human words to it because we wrap our mind around like darkness and things like that, but it was a pure nothing energy. It was like there's nothing there except for love. And you would, if I were to describe it, it's like I would describe it as like the womb of the universe, like where God holds his babies. And I found myself in this realm. And as I'm in this realm, I'm feeling the like blissful, like there's no feeling like this. It's like peace beyond understanding and the concept of nothing matters except for love. And there's nothing to do but love. And I'm in this realm and I start looking like around me and I start seeing billions and billions of stars. And I am just memorized. I'm like looking around thinking, oh my God, this is beautiful. And I'm just staring at the stars and this love is radiating out of me. And I'm thinking, this is so pretty. Then all of a sudden I realize these aren't stars, they're souls. And I'm like, I am them and they are me. We're all one. We're all in this womb of God. We're we're being held here. And then I start to feel this energy to the right of me. And I was pulled to look and I turned and I looked and I saw this vibrant energy that I can't describe. It's like there's no way to, it's bigger than the sun, but yet it was contained for me to experience at that moment. But it had like frequencies and colors and energy, and there was nothing but blissful love that I can't describe as a human. And I'm watching it in awe. And all of a sudden, I start to see those little stars, those lights that I saw around me shooting out of it. And all these little lights were shooting out of it. And it was like little replicas of itself. And then all of a sudden, I heard, this is what it means to be created in the image of God. You are it. You are being created as it. And then this little, compared to itself, this energy that comes out of God, that's birthed of God, that is God, is given free will. And you stay in the womb of God until you're ready to go and explore the universe. And that's when you're given the opportunity to go be anything you want in the entire existence of all things. And some of us decide to come be human. So
Wow. So when you were describing that, and I know you've watched a lot of NDE accounts, it sounds very much like what people describe as the void,
Mm,
this black velvetiness, the brown
yeah.
velvetiness, the place where all thoughts are birthed, how thought would be instantly created into or turned into anything that we wanted to create. Is that what you think they're describing?
Yeah, I think so. I never put that together. But yes, that's exactly how I would describe it because there's not, I love the velvety language of that because it's almost like I don't know how to describe it. It's just it's like not thick but not there's existence there. There's energy there, but it's so pure. Like we can only compare it to the energy of Earth. Like we think in density, there's no density there at all. It's just pure, vibrant light. That's not light.
People have talked about being felt like they've been held by all of creation, by God, like
Yeah,
swaddled like a baby and held.
that's exactly it. That's why I feel like describing it as like the womb of God, like this
Yeah.
pregnant, like you're in the baby, like you're in the belly of God, waiting to be birthed. Like you're being formed and you're little, I say little, we're not little, but compared to God, we're being formed in our little soul bodies, in our spirit bodies, and then our spirit is like, let's go explore. Let's go have this experience.
I also love how you described it. You said it was being birthed, but it was also God. So it wasn't other. Like, I think when we talk about this, because we have the human constraint and the limitation of the words, we talk about it in your soul, my soul, higher self. But what I experienced on the other side is similar to what you're talking about, where it is all source having that experience, looking out through Angie's eyes, looking out through Lori's eyes, looking out at everybody who's watching eyes. But it is all one thing having that experience. Is that kind of what you
Yes.
felt also?
Yes. It's we're all the same energy. And I think that's why it's hard as a human because the concept that the I was just doing a reading earlier and they were showing me the wisdom keepers are magnificent. I can't ever comprehend all they know, but they were showing me the different layers of the universe and they were describing light and darkness and how in our realm we experience light and darkness as separate. But the more you merge into the energy of God, it is one. And there is no separation. The masculine and feminine that we experience as a human, there is not a separation of that within the concept of the creator. It is both an equal and neither is ruling. There's no hierarchy. There's no control. There's only order.
Yeah, I got that feeling also, though. I always say it in the way of there's no good, better, best there.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, I want to ask one more question, then I want to talk about the channeling of the wisdom keepers, which is you said not only did you witness the souls that were being created, but you said that you saw things that blew your mind. What else blew your mind?
Oh my goodness. Um, they show me like I had another experience where they had me step out of my body. Um, that was crazy. They actually I won't go into the whole thing, but I unzipped my body and I walked out of it and I walked into this realm of pure bliss and light. And as I walked into it, one of them put their hand out and they put it on my chest and they said, "You are not meant yet to come here yet. Like we just want you to experience what it feels like so you can teach it." And so they pushed me back in my body. And so when I had that experience, that gave me the ability to somehow astro travel throughout. like the galaxies in the universe, and they show me gosh, it's so hard to describe these things, but they show me like quadrant, like these the only way I can describe it is like um energetic lines within the universe. I'm not good at math or any of that stuff, but they are, and they've showed me how the concepts of every single thing that we experience is an exact replica of source itself. So from the tiniest molecule or thing on earth to the largest concept in the universe, there's a mirroring effect that is taking place. We don't see that because we think in a very low vibrational thing. But from something as simple as, I mean, the easiest thing for us to see is like we've seen pictures of like a tree versus the lungs of a human. This concept of like the branch of a tree looks a lot like the lungs of a human. That is the entire universe. Everything like is mirroring it. There's something that is a yin and a yang, a light and a darkness of everything. And so the different frequencies and dimensions that we can have a concept of in our mind, we think of it in layers. And they have showed me this in a way that it's all in existence within itself, and it's folding within itself. So they've showed me, if you could imagine a donut with a hole in the middle, they said the universe is a constant cycle coming in and out and every single which way, unfolding and folding back into itself. And so as you experience going out, for us, we are on the very edge of the donut being a human. And then when we get pulled back in, we get closer to God, closer to ourselves. And so that's what we're experiencing, is this ascension. Like our soul has experienced the ability to be a human, and we've learned and we come to experience what we've wanted to experience in this part of our evolution of a soul. But God is always pulling itself back to self. We're never sent so far away that we don't get pulled back. So everything is working as one if we are able to wrap our heads around that. There's not a dimension that isn't connected to another dimension, and there's overlaps that take place as well. And they've also showed me, which I thought was really crazy to think, is that within each dimension they have a layer of help within the next above. So like we have spirit guides that help us as humans, those in a higher frequency have those that help them. And so it's not like a hierarchy, it's not like a control system, it's an orderly system. And so like the wisdom keepers have described to me, they have there's more wisdom keepers than they will ever let me know. They've only let me know 12 of them. um but they've showed me that there are 12 that are assigned to earth for the ascension that help um keep things on track, kind of, but only because the third dimension need that. When you get into other dimensions, there's just reminders. There's not necessarily teaching. There's like guidance of your learning is this. You came here, you came to be a Pleiadian to have this experience because you want to help Earth with this. So we will help guide you to remember your mission here. And then as you move into a different realm, like even like you could get all the way up to the archangels. The archangels are pretty high frequency, but they even have like cherubim and other beings that they not necessarily report to but work with. And so like for the wisdom keepers, they work with all the dimensions, but also they've showed me, they took me into the 24th dimension, which was crazy. And they showed me 24 elders that they report to, that hold the order of things. So God is so intelligent that it created everything with the ability to stay in order with itself. So it'd be like, I'm going to create something, but I'm also going to create everything that keeps it in line to keep it from expanding beyond what I want it to expand. And I'm the breath that pulls it in and out. So these are beyond concepts that our human mind can wrap around.
Angie, I don't know how it works for you with channeling, but are you able to connect with them and do a small channel session right now for the collective?
Sure. Yeah. Is there anything particular that you would like me to bring through?
If you want to
Okay.
bring through
Yeah.
the wisdom keepers, I would love to
Sure.
ask.
Yeah, I can do that. So it'll just take me a second. I do trance channels, so my eyes will be closed. But yeah, so I'll get them and see what they have to say.
Okay.
Okay. Mm. We are here to assist you with this transmission of light and energy and eager to share with you the things that help you to comprehend yourself in a higher frequency and light. We are now ready for your questions.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining us and letting us have some time with you today. I want to ask kind of the $1,000,000 Earth question, which is why are humans here on this planet?
You are here to explore, to learn, to evolve, to experience. There are no other dimensions within this galaxy that give you the teaching or concepts that you learn within this energetic realm that you are in. By becoming a physical being, you feel, sense, and see and experience things beyond the non physical realm. When you come to Earth, you have a experience that gathers information to remind you of who you are. When you return to your true self, you come back into the frequency of remembering, which expands your awareness of yourself. As Angie was just saying, the concept of pulling itself back into its own creation, into what you call God, by expanding yourself so far away from yourself to experience yourself in a way that is physical and then pulling yourself back into the non-physical form of yourself, you are getting experiences that give you the ability to feel your own frequency and love beyond what you are able to without the experience. This is not something that has been developed as what humans may call as punishment or a problem. It is actually a very expansive energy that gives a soul the ability to move through their concept of exploring self beyond the non physical. Does this help?
Yes. I want to further that question by asking if one of the objectives of the Earth experience is to actually wake up and remember that we are not this experience.
This is one part of the experience. However, it is not necessarily happening for all humans at the same time. There's an evolution that takes place. And even as Source is creating more of itself now, there are souls that will continue to choose to have an experience in the third dimension. The third dimension will never go away or disappear. It just will become a different frequency for you to experience in a different way. You will not need to engage with it the way that you have engaged with it. You may assist other beings that choose to go into that dimension to experience themselves and allow yourself to teach them how to move back out of that realm, as you may call ascending. But on earth, there is a frequency of learning that allows the human mind to begin to awaken, and this sometimes takes place over many lifetimes and experiences based on what a soul decided to learn when it began its physical experience. As many souls have continued to merge into many different timelines to have many different experiences as they set the goal to have those experiences. It's much like a human attempting to read a book and not fully understanding what the book is saying unless they were actually to act out or perform what is in the book. It is like a soul choosing to move into the earth to act out what they are able to read that is happening. So the evolution is not necessarily the way that humans can comprehend it, that you are ascending into something that has never been created before. It is that you are coming back into the remembrance. And many of you on earth are in that place where you are capable of remembering and ascending into what you are creating now for a fifth dimensional new earth experience. This is because the evolution of all things expands this way. This is not the first time Earth has gone through this process, and it will not be the last time. We hope this helps.
Yes. I am puzzled though by one piece of which you spoke of, which is learning. The word learning meaning acquiring knowledge that we don't already have. If we are infinitely powerful souls who are really not this human experience, if we are really one collective and ultimately one source, what does that infinite being that is omnipotent need to learn?
It does not need to learn anything. What it is doing is experiencing. The learning comes from the concept of you being in a different dimension and reality. So for you, it is learning, but for your soul, it is remembering, it is experiencing, it is expanding, it is coming back into the concept of self. Just as we were sharing before through Angie, you have learned throughout your evolution of yourself, through every experience that you have, who you are. And so, what is taking place is the creator cannot not create. It is creating at all times. And so, it is creating an experience for itself to have. And in that experience, what is created to have the experience in what you call a soul or a spirit is then given the ability to choose what it wants to do. As it does this, it expands its knowledge to merge back into itself. As you see, this is a constant evolution, as eternity has no beginning and end. This is always happening at all times. You are just seeing it from a very limited view as you are in time and in space in this dimension. But once you return to your truth, once you evolve into a frequency where you are in your knowing, you realize that time and space does not exist and that you are a creator and therefore you want to create experiences for yourself. And this is just simply because that is what creators do. They create. This is help.
That thank you not only helps, especially for the people who are watching, but is also a complete confirmation of how I understood things to be on the other side. I am really, really happy with the way that you explained that. We talk about the earth going through an ascension, and we talked earlier about not all souls here going through an awakening period where they remember, or a remembering period, which might be more accurate. But the people who are likely have found this video, who have stayed with Angie and I all the way into over an hour of this discussion, are probably most likely in that phase where they have awakened. They are remembering who they are. What message do you have for these souls who are awake, and what do they need to know right now about this experience?
Yes, you are correct. And many of those who have not yet awakened will come across this video and begin to challenge their minds and their understanding. One of the concepts that we encourage humans to remember is that their thought forms their reality. Many humans think of very limited thought. If you could think of a dot in your mind, that thought that comes through the dot is simply what humans often think. They think in a very limited, focused, simple way. As you ascend, as you awaken, that dot becomes larger. Your thinking becomes expanded. Your ability to perceive reality opens up. You begin to see that you are creating your reality. You begin to have the concept of your own inner truth. You begin to realize that everything that you need is within you. You open up to the concept that you are not just a physical being, but a multidimensional being having an experience. And so, as you learn more about yourself, the main thing to remember is to allow your mind to continue to expand. When you begin to limit your thinking, when you begin to focus your thinking on something that keeps you stuck in a vibration, that is when your ascension struggles to continue. It is a continual expansion in what you call in your language learning. It is a learning about self. It's realizing self from a different view, from a different frequency. And this also gives you the ability to open up to things that you have always had abilities to do, to connect with the non physical or to relate to the non physical world around you that has always been present with you. Does this help?
Yes, so much. But will you expand on that answer a little bit and help people to understand tips or activities that they can use to help themselves in this expansion?
Yes, this is being aware of self. When you understand self, you understand the concepts of how you think, and everything within all beings in all dimension, in all time, in all experiences throughout the entire universe is formed through thought. When you are in the non physical, your thought expands quickly. You experience without a delay. You think, I want to go here, and you are there. On earth, you think, I want to go there, and then you have to plan to go there. The concept is allowing yourself to be patient with the physical realm as it expands and opens. So, teaching yourself through guided meditation, through stillness, through reprogramming the thoughts in your brain as they come forward, as your team, your higher self, and those around you that are reflecting back to you, as everything is a mirror attempting to teach you about yourself, begin to bring your awareness back into your thoughts. You notice them and then you shift them. And as you spoke before, many of these things are attached to ideas, thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. Those things are your navigation center. When you allow them to help you instead of hinder you, that is when you ascend. So, all the tools you need have been provided to you. You just have to allow yourself to use them as tools and not as obstacles or blocks in your life. Humans have an idea that there are blocks that keep them from things, but blocks are created through the thoughts that you have. So open yourself up and remember that a block is something that is there to either teach you or to allow you to have an experience. And once you relax and release the idea that the block is actually hindering you, it then gives you the ability to expand your mind and you move through or around the block to the next ability to learn something. Humans wanted to have experiences that were obstacles to learn through. That is why you came here. As you ascend, these obstacles become less because you no longer need them to learn. As your awareness becomes expanded enough that you can see, sense, or feel something and learn from the experience without needing an obstacle to teach you. So, this is why, as you ascend, as you expand, as you come back to self, as you come to stillness within your own nervous system and your body, you will no longer need to have as many obstacles in your experience to give you awareness of who you are. And really, the whole concept of being a human is to learn how to love, to come back to love. When you return to the non physical, as we know you are very well aware of, love is all that truly matters. Love is the frequency you are moving back to. And that first is yourself, and then in your thoughts and your frequency expanding, that is towards everything and everyone around you. We hope this helps.
This is so helpful. It sounds to me also, as you were saying it, can I paraphrase in a different word or phrase, that everything is happening for us and not to us?
This is correct.
And then I have two last questions I would like to ask. Will you explain to those of us who are watching who you are as wisdom keepers? Have you had earthly experiences before?
We are the wisdom keepers, and we are having an earthly experience currently through this vessel, Angie, as one of us is channeling our light through her. And in many ways, her, what you may call expanded self or a part of herself, resides with us in the Octarian race, which then reports to the wisdom keepers and teaches humanity about themselves. We are a collective group of energy. We are coming from many different galactic places within the universe. We come from very different quadrants. We all are representations of where we come from, reporting back into the wisdom of the universe. We hold the frequency and the remembrance of what is happening throughout all things. You may even say that we could be the brain of God, where we hold the memories, the frequencies. So at times when humans try to attempt to remember things from their non-physical realm, or they access what you might call the libraries or the Akashic records, we are recording these, we are holding these, and we are giving concepts back to different parts of the universe as reminders of their own process of ascension. As humanity is not the only one working through an ascension, all things are ascending, all things are working together. So our, what you may call in a human language, job is that we have taken on is to hold the frequency of the universe and the wisdom to report it back in a way to those who need it to remember who they are wherever they are. In this particular group, the group that is being channeled currently through this vessel, the 12 of us hold the frequency of Earth's ascension. We each have our role in what we do to help Earth and reporting back to the councils of light. We also work with the Galactic Federation and many other councils throughout the universe. We are all one, we are all unified, and we are all love. We hope this helps.
So incredibly beautiful. Um, Thank you so much for spending the time with us. I'm crying right now because of all of the truths that I heard you say. Like, I feel so emotional about this. So, thank you for allowing us the time to ask these questions and for you to share your wisdom. I understand why you are called the Wisdom Keepers. Thank you. Can
We
you
are honored.
can you bring Angie back now?
Yes. Thank you for the time and the remembrance.
Angie, I have tears streaming down my face. Like, I don't usually get this emotional on one of these channels. This is so real. I want to say something about you to the audience. I know sometimes it's hard for people to understand if these things are real, but I want you to go back and listen to when the channeling began, and maybe even go back and listen to how Angie talks. When Angie talks, she uses filler words, as almost every guest who comes on this show. Not using filler words is a practice that I've been doing for probably 20 years. Angie, as soon as you became the Wisdom Keepers, there was not one single filler word used. It was as if every word had a purpose and a meaning, and it was so precisely executed. And that's not very normal for most humans. And this is another reason, not only did what they say resonate so deeply with me, but how it was channeled through you was different than when we were having a conversation.
I have heard this before. I'm not very good. Speaking is not a great gift for mine. So I actually, that's why I prefer to channel, because it's hard for me to comprehend what's going through my brain. But when I let go, um, I don't have to work, they do. I just have to hold the vibration.
It was magnificent. I will say the energy had, even though you're a woman, very feminine woman, that energy had a little bit more of a masculinity towards it than a femininity. Would you agree?
Yes, and you know what's interesting is it switches.
Okay.
Because there are times I think it depends on who they're talking to and the questions being asked because there have been times where there's a very gentle feminine energy that comes through me and the people I channel for on a regular basis they will say that like that was who was that, and I think it's because there's so many of them that it's they're one, but it's like one of them channels based on the questions that are being asked and what wisdom they're meant to share, and so I never know which I actually don't even know which one comes through when. And I don't think that even matters, but I my even my physical body feels different when kind of a masculine energy comes in versus a feminine energy. When kind of a masculine energy comes in versus a feminine energy. And I've channeled 3 times today. I've done several different private sessions. And so I think that the feminine side of me is a little tired. So I think the other part of me had to come through a little bit more.
So, do you remember what they say?
No. Like if you were to say something to me like, "Oh, they said this," then they'll like I can remember, but I don't know details. I have no idea actually what was just said. Uh I don't even know what to say that they said.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, it was absolutely spot on, incredible, aligned with everything that I have come to learn and understand and know as truth from my experiences on the other side.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wow. Wow. Wow is an understatement of what it was.
Wow.
So, oh my gosh, I feel like just like taking a deep breath. I mean, anybody who just watched that, like I don't want to end my time with you, but there's a part of me, Angie, that cannot wait. I'm going to go back after this interview and listen to this again, where I can lay down and absorb it more because I'm in a different state when I'm in an interview than I am when I get to receive. And it was that good. It was that beautiful. I can count on one hand how many times I've gone back after an interview to listen to an interview.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna get emotional.
And I've done like
That's
400 of
sweet.
these. So I like this
That's
says a lot. I
oh
mean,
my
this
God.
was incredible. Well, I would imagine there are people right now who are like, how in the world do I find her? Angie is a fellow content creator on YouTube. She has her own channel. She's done hundreds of videos now. So she has a lot of content that you can consume. But tell everybody, and I'd like you to talk about your book too.
Yeah, so I do have a YouTube channel and don't get overwhelmed because I've been doing teachings for years on there. But YouTube Soul Alignment Mentor, TikTok,
What's it called? What's the name of it?
Soul Alignment Mentor
Can
is
you spell
the
it for the people
title.
who are listening?
Yeah, so the title I go by is Soul like SOU. How do I even know how to spell that?
Soul.
Yeah, alignment. Yes.
Alignment.
And then mentor. It's so like if you were to type that into Google, you would see I would probably come up Angie Harris.
And
But
I'm
I
going to put this in the
actually
show notes for people too.
okay, yeah. And I've actually written 4 books.
Okay.
So my first book is Leaf Lessons. It's about my story of leaving religion and trauma. My second book is Composting the Ego. It's about integrating the ego with your
Love the
spirit.
title.
I know they gave it to me. I'm like, that's cool. I'm going to use that. And then my last book is Parables for a New Earth, and it's literally parables the wisdom keepers gave me over the last 2 years. I kept track of every channel message, and then I wrote
How
them
do you
down.
keep track of them?
I get my phone out and I record it. I just channel it out, or I'll write it. So I took I in that book. in my other books, I put a little bit of myself in it and ego and stuff. This book has nothing, no me in it. It's all them. So you're just going to see like one or two pages at a time, and it's just a message from them. And then I created a workbook to go with it because the concepts are just crazy. So all those books are on my website, angieharris.org. And there's access to email me on there or to schedule a session or join my Ascension membership. I channel every Wednesday at
What's
5.
your Ascension membership? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Um, my Ascension membership is changed over the years, but it is access to all my channeled information. I have a library on my website of every single channeled message I've done for the last 3 years.
So how many messages do you think you have on there?
Oh my God. I I don't I
Hundreds.
hundreds like, and it would probably be interesting to see how it's evolved over the years, because when I first started I was really just channeling Annabelle, and then the wisdom keepers
Oh.
that came through and it opened up. And so all of my, I try to keep them all organized on there. But then if the Ascension membership gives you access to actually talk to the wisdom keepers. I give you a private link to get on a Zoom with me, and I go into the channel and you just have like there's a group of people and you put in, I have a question. They get on there, you ask the question, they talk to you directly, and then we go to the next person and they get to ask questions. So really, I mean, they like questions because that gives them the ability to teach, and that's what their desire is, to help humans to learn who they are. So the Ascension membership is just purely channeling. I do have another group I call the Healer Circle. It's more of a private community of just women where I teach women how to stand in their power. I do retreats with them and things like that. So that is kind of an invite only group, but we're open to people coming to hang out with us in there too.
Beautiful. Wow. Okay, I'm going to ask you one final question. But before I do, I want to know from the people who are watching, if you've made it this far, like we're an hour and 40 minutes in because this was so divine. What did you like the best? Was it the Wisdom Keepers? Was it a specific message from the Wisdom Keepers? Or was it Angie talking about how to overcome shame, how to live a better life? Like, get out of the religion? Like, what part resonated with you? I'm always so curious about what you guys think. But Angie, one final question for you is, what do you know for sure?
I know that love is real. I know that we are eternal beings that resonate from the only pure divine love. And when we get in touch with that, that's the only thing that will ever matter, is to understand love. That is the one truth I live by.
Well, I don't think I can get any better than that. So, Angie, I want to thank you. First of all, thank you for your vulnerability in sharing these things. I know sometimes when we talk about religion, we sometimes get a little bit of backlash in the comments because this triggers people who are very much still in that place. And that's okay because there are no accidents. And I think every conversation at least opens people up a little bit, because you and I were both in the same place where we were really steeped in that religious doctrine. And at some point we got out. Mine was like 26 years ago, 25 years ago, 24, something like that. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
And we now have a little bit different perception of how things are. And every single one of these conversations helped to wake up the collective. So, Angie, thank you so much for what you are personally doing with your channeling, with your teachings to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Thank you. And it was an honor to be with you today. And
Oh,
I love seeing your journey expand too. So
thank you so much. And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and to share these beautiful experiences with somebody who needs it. And if you still have questions, you can join me for Wake Up Wednesdays live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Do you believe that love never dies and you want to hear stories that prove it? Well, hit the subscribe button. You belong here.